Read about it tomorrow. See it tonight. Hear it all day today. If it's happening in the Coachella Valley, it's front and center now on iHub Radio.
And there it is.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
All right, welcome back to the Russ Betts Show. Good to have you with us. Our next guest was born in Duluth, Minnesota in August 1930. And he's been successful in a number of areas, including as a developer, a home builder, in mortgage lending, and in sales and land acquisition as a specialist, consulting others. He served as the mayor of Buena Park, California, and as a member of the National Association of Home Builders. He's written many building industry journals, newspaper columns, and several books on a variety of industry subjects. And he's lectured on entrepreneurism at colleges and universities and is much in demand as a building industry seminar leader, with the title of his seminars being How to Survive, Succeed, and Grow in the Building and Contracting Business. And Bill is also a marketing consultant and business coach, a political activist, and an author, if I can keep track, 30 books. Bill, welcome to the Russ Betts Show.
Thanks, Russ.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
I don't know if you heard all that intro. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, so do I have that correct? 30 books now?
Yes, 30, and I'm working on my 31st right now.
All right. So the latest is America, Are You Ready? Surviving the Great Depression. And I'm guessing that this one just fits right in with, I don't know how you were able to foresee this one coming, because I don't think you started this book, a week ago. What do we got going on here? Tell me about this.
Well, the economy is tanking big time. And in as much as I was born right during the Great Depression and continued through the first 15 years of my life, all the way up to the end of the Second World War, that experience I had as a young man, or a young boy, I should say, and then following it all the way through, it just jumped right at me when this thing started, and I don't think people are really ready, and that's why I titled the book, Are You Ready, America? I don't think they're ready for the length of time it's going to take to get out of this down economy. I mean, it isn't going to happen like snap your finger.
Well, you've got people out there saying if we can just get back to work next week, everything will go back to the way it was. But I think we're past that point, right?
Oh, yeah. No way is that going to happen. I mean, it's going to go on a long, long time. And I'm not a doomsayer. I'm just saying that the reality of things are that people don't realize that depression that occurred in 1932 reoccurred in 1936-37 and continued right up until we got into the Second World War, and the country geared up to build all of those ships and tanks and stuff that it took to fight the war. So I'm not saying it's going to take a war to get us out of this thing, but I am saying it isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah, well, you look at you've seen the stats on the airline industry. Have you seen the pictures of the airliners parked, the airplanes parked on the runways and everywhere else?
And here locally, Boeing is one of the big parts of our economy. Boeing and Amazon are the two biggest, and Boeing is basically, out of business.
Yeah, well, they just had a 777, Boeing 777 go off the line. The airline had to take delivery because of all the penalties. And it went straight to Tulsa, Oklahoma to be parked on an airport runway. The only flight it made was to be parked. And I guess there's a few more that are going to roll off the line, but it's done, right? It's shutting down.
Oh, yeah. They they talked about bringing back a group of their workers, but that hasn't occurred yet either.
And then you hear people say, oh, well, who's going to bail out these big airlines? And whether you get into that or not, think of all the people that are, ancillary support, the people who go and clean the planes, the baggage handlers, the people that operate all the gates at the airports, the jet engine mechanics, the pilots, who are all being furloughed like crazy, flight attendants. I mean, there's a lot of people that are out of work just in that one industry, and it's not just that industry.
No, it's all the ancillary companies that supply all the parts to the manufacturing of those planes. And the irony of irony, when oil is now at the cheapest it's ever been, which would be a boon for the airlines if they were flying, they can't take advantage of the cheap fuel. It's an ironic irony.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm in a I was born in 1958, and I had my grandma around who went through the Great Depression, who I always saw in her the thriftiness that comes with being, going through something like that out of necessity. And but I grew up in a different time. I mean, life was e-tickets at Disneyland, and you just go get some more if you run out. And this is the first time I think a lot of Americans are going to be facing this kind of adversity. And I'm really afraid of what's coming. I don't want to sound like an alarmist either, but you can't objectively look at the picture and say, well, there isn't something seriously amiss right now.
Right, and I just don't think American people are prepared for it. I mean, they've had it pretty nice for a long time, and it was just like just keep on keeping on, but not anymore. I mean, we're facing some hard times.
Well, part of that is too the savings rate, which I covered in the first part of the show, is just abysmal for Americans. You sit there and you see China shut down for a month, and most Chinese weren't even breathing hard at having to shut down for a month because they don't go paycheck to paycheck. They could probably go 2 or 3 years on the savings they have. And that's because they're basically, if they don't have the savings or something comes along, they die. So they've gotten used to saving. But their savings rate's up around 65% of their salary, and they've stashed it all away for years. So
and our citizens here, if they have a week's supply of money, they're lucky. They just spend right up to the minute, right up to their next paycheck.
All right, so is America, Are You Ready? Surviving the Great Depression? Is this a guide that will give us a look ahead at what we're... I have to be honest with you, I didn't read it yet. I'm going to. I've read all your... I haven't read all 30. I've read 3 of your books. So tell me what we got in the book.
Well, yes, and what I do is all day long, I upload articles from all of the major outlets. Time Magazine, the New York Times, the New Yorker, all the various networks. I select the articles that are current to the times, and so each of these books, there's now 6 in the series, 4 in the first series, and there's 2 in this series, and I may add a third, and they will be excellent reference pieces for the future, looking back on how all this happened, when it happened, and why it happened. And that was my whole concept in producing these books. So they're just a total reference as all these things occurred all the way through, and then I make commentary in between the articles on my view of the various articles and how they apply and where they apply, and so it's a labor of love, and I'm really enjoying doing it, even though the topic is kind of not so happy.
Yeah, well, I when I go back and it's not happy, that's for sure. I go back and I read, and I read some of the stories about the Great Depression. What sticks in my mind is that, a story about somebody says, hi, the neighbor fell in hard times, and we were lucky enough to be able to get through it okay, but we always had to make sure we, put some food out or gave them some kind of odd job just to help keep them alive. Do you remember some people getting along okay and other people not?
Oh, listen, all of my friends, I mean, we were, from the time I was 10 years old, I had a job. I was doing something to make a few pennies here and there. My dad was constantly working. He worked for the railroad, then he got laid off. So he and his brothers went out sawing cordwood and selling it to keep a few dollars. Those were hard times. And one of the things that was in our favor when Roosevelt got elected and took office, he started immediately on creating programs to put people to work. The WPA, the CCC, all these various things. And he created projects, building parks, Mount Rushmore, all of these things he created to keep people busy doing work and funding it through various sources of the government. Well, right now, nothing's happening like that. Nobody is doing anything to get the people to work.
Well, we're sitting at home with stay-at-home orders.
Well, now what they're doing is they're paying people to do nothing.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. It just isn't healthy. People need to be doing something. And of all things, here we sit with an infrastructure that's destroying itself, nothing happening with our infrastructure for the last 20 years, and we got all these people out of work. Why in the hell aren't we putting them to work, building new infrastructure all across the country? They'd love to go to work. These people want to go to work.
Well, you have to wonder, because I think the mindset so far has been, we're just going to pay everybody. And we've already seen 1-2 programs run out of money real quick. And it wasn't all because some big companies got more than they should have, although I'm sure there's lots of that going on. But there's not enough money to pay people to do nothing. There's not enough money in the economy. The government isn't the economy. It's the private sector generating the taxes that end up getting spread by the government.
Unfortunately, the great American way has become, if you got a problem, throw money at it. It's stupid. Well, instead of using brain power and putting people to work with their hands and their brains, just throw money at them. It's crazy. Well, it's insanity.
$2 trillion disappeared in what, 2 weeks?
Yes, and now they're scratching for more.
Well, they're going to run out. You had Mitch McConnell. He took the usual hit as being the cold, heartless ogre, saying, hey, guys, there's not enough money left to do all this. And he was talking about putting the brakes on it. The realization that there's just not enough money. Used to be a $22 trillion economy. And you take $2 trillion of that GDP and throw it out, and it's gone in 2 weeks? What are you going to do? Keep everything...
The national debt is larger than it's ever been in the history of the country.
Yeah,
and there's no end in sight. It makes us a sitting duck.
Let's pick up this conversation on the other side of the break. Can you hang with us, Bill?
Sure.
Okay. All right. We'll be back. We got Bill Effinger on the line, author of America, Are You Ready? Surviving the Great Depression. It's a look at what's coming ahead, and it's not a pretty picture. We're going to take a little bit more detailed look at what we think America can expect. I don't think it's going back to work. We'll see. All right. Back with more on the Russ Betts Show here on ihub Radio in downtown Palm Springs.
Live from the Palm Springs iHub, he calls it as he sees it. The Russ Betts Show. Call 760-544-TALK. Now, here's Russ Betts.
All right, well, it wasn't that long ago that we were in the best economy you could ever hope for. Unemployment rates at, 2-3%, or just anybody who wanted the job could find one. Things were looking pretty darn good. And then all of a sudden, boom, gone in a flash. There we are, 30, 60 days later, and the airline industries are crashed, and it's just... Bill, I know... We're on the line with Bill Effinger. He's an author of a book called America, Are You Ready? Surviving the Great Depression. And it happens to be very timely because it's a look at, how people got through the Great Depression and how they're going to weather this storm. Bill, I think you were probably a little young at the time to see, neighbors losing their jobs, you were probably coming of age a little bit after that. You were born into the Great Depression, not before it, right?
Right.
And so...
1932.
But did you see anybody... did you see some of the hardship from the families around you, or did it already hit? Did the crash already come?
No. I mean, we were all my friends, friends, and my family, which was quite large. My mom and dad only had 2 children. I was the only one at that time. But my dad came from a family of 12 children, and my mother came from a family of 12 children. And so cousins and aunts and uncles, we all experienced the Great Depression, and it wasn't a pretty thing. So, and that's, the book that I wrote that we're talking about covers that era right up to current times. And currently I'm writing my next book, which is entitled Aftershock, which begins on the very day that crude oil reached minus zero value on the stock market. It was an absolute calamitous time that's never happened in the history of the world. Oil dropped to minus zero.
Do you think banks are going to start throwing people out of their houses like we saw in 2008, where you had, 10, 15% of the homes in a neighborhood were in foreclosure? Is that going to happen?
Well, governments are stepping up and creating laws that supposedly are going to prevent that from happening. But there again, I mean, somewhere, someone has to pick up the tab, because the banks, if they don't get mortgage payments, they're going to run out of money. And if the banks run out of money, then there you go. We're into another bank crash.
I don't know if I get depressed listening to my own show this morning. There's got to be some good news out there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find good news.
All right. Well, we climbed out of it 15 years later, right?
Yes, we did. But like I said, unfortunately, it took a shot in the arm, which World War II was for our economy. But we don't want to look forward to a war to get us out of the economy. We'd like to think that we've got leaders who can figure this out. But I have to tell you, when I look across the spectrum of the leadership in this country, it's absolutely frightening.
Well, I'm wondering if it's even possible for them to manage the bureaucracies that they're trying to put in motion to help. And I know as a city council member, everybody thinks they come to you and say, hi, fix this. And you say, well, I got to go get city staff to move in that direction. And you also have to have at least a majority of the council willing to do it. And then you have to have a majority of the council willing to show some gumption if staff is resisting, because they've got their own ideas. And I'm wondering, how does a congressman, in the House of Representatives, 435 people, sit there and tell the agencies what to do and how to do it? I mean, they can't even get the unemployment system here in California to deliver. It's a mess.
And the unfortunate thing is, statesmanship went out the window, I think, about 20 years ago. And what we've got two sides totally locked up in partisanship, and nothing's happening.
I think partisanship is being complimentary. I go back and remember my grade school, maybe on the second, in the schoolyard, when we're out of recess, the level of debate that went on out there. I mean, sticking out their tongues and calling each other names. It's just absolutely insane what our national leaders are doing all the way around. It's just really disgusting.
It's embarrassing along with it. And, America has been looked by the rest of the world as the leader of the world. And right now, if you were looking at us from Mars, you'd think we're a third world country.
Yeah, well, there's a proposal out there to cut off this H-1B, H-2B visa programs and any import of any workers, because Americans are out of work. What a few jobs are left they're going to want. Do you agree with that one?
I don't agree with what's going on with immigration at all. I think it's terrible. But and they never seem to talk about how do those immigrants get a job? They get a job because all the fat cats are making lots of money hiring immigrants who are willing to work for half of what other people are non-immigrants are willing to work for.
Yeah, well, I think the other part of that story, though, is they've also gone out and started their own business. I mean, there's a lot of people here in the country who've started their own businesses, working hard, and whether they're here legally or not, they've got a work ethic that's produced. They're not just the maids and the
no. They're all workers, very, very hard workers, And where we're living now, up in the state of Washington, in the very northern part of Washington, across from Seattle, there's evidence all over the place where these people are hard workers. To be shutting the door, it's a two-sided coin.
So where do you come down on that one? Do you think we should be opening up? I mean, the parts of the economy that can be saved by starting up, like the hair salon and it's going to be down economy, but at least it's some economy. The florist, some of these other businesses that are closed, should they be able to open up?
Absolutely, let them.
Well, you're not afraid of the virus?
No, I'm not suggesting that you open them up. Until the situation has changed to where you have to wear a mask to go outside or to go to a store. I mean, that's not conducive for good business. So we've got to get through this virus, and hopefully we'll come to that sooner rather than later. Because if we don't, the economy, I don't know how long it's going to be in the tank.
Yeah. All right, Bill, I appreciate you coming on. I've had you on a few times. It's always good to have the conversation with you. We're moving on to another segment here, and thanks for being here. If you haven't got Bill's book, it's America, Are You Ready? Surviving the Great Depression. Bill, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're back with Dana Johnson of Food Now. He's going to let us know about some relief that's on the line for you if you need some help, and we're going to examine that. Doing some great work there. This is Russ Betts at iHub Radio, and we're back with more.